Kelly, a 27-year-old resident of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, had called the city home for the past 5 years. Balancing 3 jobs kept her perpetually busy, yet she always made time for friends, lively bars, and exploring the local restaurant scene. Her father, Tony, observed that she seemed content and had confidently established herself in the city. Despite her demanding schedule, she made a point of staying connected with him through regular phone calls. Kelly's aunt remarked on her innate ability to see the good in everyone, an optimistic trait that drew a multitude of friends to her. An avid traveler, Kelly had been a sports enthusiast since childhood, initially favoring tennis before discovering a passion for yoga. Kelly juggled a life as a sports apparel consultant, a yoga instructor at the local studio, and a part-time nanny. Like many, she navigated the world of social media and dating apps, enjoying the freedom of meeting new people. For about a year, Kelly was in a steady relationship with Chris Sako, a 38-year-old IT professional. She told her father that she was smitten with Chris, who previously worked for a well-known baseball team, but had relocated to Milwaukee seeking fresh opportunities. Chris matched Kelly's energy. He was hardworking, loved sports, enjoyed traveling, and embraced the city's nightlife. On October 10, 2013, they painted the town red, hopping between bars and catching up with friends. October the 12th. Just 2 days after the party, Kelly abruptly vanished from social media. This was unusual, as she typically posted multiple times each day. When friends attempted to reach her, her phone was unreachable, calls going straight to voicemail. Later that day, her boss, Karen, noticed Kelly hadn't come to work. She tried calling Chris, but he didn't answer either, only to left a message saying he hadn't seen her for a few days. He suspected she might be upset with him after the party. However, the complete lack of activity, not just on social media, but also with her bank cards, sparked real concern. The search began. It turned out Kelly had gone to see Chris that evening at his apartment on the 18th floor of Lafayette Tower. Around 8 p.m., they went out together to look for illicit substances, but came up empty-handed. They then headed to a nearby bar where they met up with some friends. Kelly recounted to her friend the joyous events of the night, mentioning her plans for a relaxing day off filled with a bit of exercise and laundry. What she truly craved was simply a day of rest. Around 2:30 in the morning, Kelly and Chris arrived at his apartment. Security cameras captured them entering the building, engrossed in lively conversation and laughter. Chris later stated that they had used recreational substances and spent the night together. He recalled hearing Kelly leave around 9 in the morning. He glanced at his watch, etching the moment into memory. It marked the last time he saw or heard from her. That day, Chris was preoccupied, hauling sports equipment to his mother's house. Meanwhile, Karen alerted the police. She revealed that Kelly had appeared increasingly weary in recent months. A noticeable weight loss and declining performance had become evident. On one occasion, Kelly had to be sent home, her strange demeanor attributed to taking allergy medication on an empty stomach. Her colleagues and the police found no reason to suspect anything sinister behind her disappearance. Driven by worry, her family, friends, and co-workers plastered missing person flyers all over town. Karen kept in contact with Chris, desperately hoping he might offer some clue, anything at all. Over the phone, he seemed cooperative, even concerned about Kelly's whereabouts. However, a face-to-face meeting at the store where Kelly worked gave Karen a completely different impression. He extended his hand, uttering words of regret as if they were perfectly rehearsed. Considering the closeness Kelly and Chris had shared over the past year, his demeanor seemed unsettling. There was a distinct lack of genuine concern, a strange absence of any desire for solace. Soon, Chris's apartment became the focal point of hushed conversations. While Kelly's father, Tony, insisted she was deeply enamored with Chris, a seed of doubt lingered in the air. He always sensed a certain reserve in Chris, as if he kept a part of himself carefully guarded. Later, the truth emerged. Chris had been involved with a woman named Megan for 3.5 years. Megan was under the impression that they were headed for marriage, completely unaware of Kelly's existence. The police spoke with Chris's mother, Joy, who confirmed that he did in fact leave some belongings at her house. However, she had never heard of Kelly. With all eyes now on Chris, the last person known to have seen Kelly, investigators focused intently on his movements. The apartment building, equipped with 28 security cameras, made an unobserved exit virtually impossible. Surveillance footage confirmed that Kelly and Chris had returned to his apartment around 3 in the morning, If, as he claimed, she had left at 9 a.m., the cameras would undoubtedly have captured it. Meanwhile, Kelly's mother was making plans to travel to Milwaukee, ready to meet with law enforcement and the press, determined to uncover the truth behind her daughter's disappearance. Posters plastered across the city announced her disappearance. The search had stretched on for over a week since the report was filed, and the police were again combing through Chris's apartment, desperately seeking any clue. He remained unnervingly calm, insisting their relationship wasn't serious. According to him, they saw each other a few times a week, sharing good times and nothing more. Kelly, he claimed, was seeing other people as well, her dating profiles remaining actively online. He even named individuals he suspected might be involved. Kelly's friends corroborated that her feelings for Chris were stronger than his for her. She desired a committed relationship, but sensed he didn't share that goal, so she remained open to meeting other people. During the interrogation, one of the detectives received a message from a colleague reviewing the security footage. It contained just a single sentence: she hadn't emerged. The security footage confirmed Kelly never left the building. She entered late at night, but no one had seen her since. This sparked considerable concern. When illicit substances were discovered in Chris's apartment, he was taken into custody. The discovery granted the police additional time to delve deeper into the investigation. A search of the premises unearthed more than anticipated. Beyond substantial quantities of illicit substances, hard drives and compact discs contained material linked to unlawful activities. Law enforcement officials characterized the findings as some of the most disturbing imagery they had ever encountered. Furthermore, authorities discovered a video on Chris's phone depicting Kelly in a compromising and deeply unsettling situation. She was bound and gagged, clearly struggling to breathe. This footage surfaced, taken 3 weeks before her disappearance. Disturbing photographs were also recovered, depicting Kelly seemingly unconscious. Other files contained scenes of suffocation and violent acts. The bathroom in Chris's apartment became a focal point of the investigation. The veil had lifted, replaced by the sharp scent of bleach in the air. A search of Chris's car had revealed a glove bearing Kelly's DNA. The implication was clear: he was involved in her disappearance. Yet, the police pressed on, meticulously gathering the evidence needed to definitively prove his guilt. Soon, new charges were brought against Chris Sako. He wasn't charged in connection with her disappearance, but 17 illicit files discovered on his computer and the discovery of hidden narcotics led to his arrest. Despite being considered a person of interest, he vehemently denied any involvement. As a month passed since Kelly vanished, her distraught parents turned to the media, offering a reward for any information that could lead to her safe return. Her mother lamented that hope dwindled with each passing day, yet they refused to surrender. Megan, Chris's girlfriend, stumbled upon the news of his arrest and knew she had to inform the authorities about his unsettling behavior. She recalled that on October the 11th, the day Kelly returned to his apartment, they were supposed to have dinner. However, Chris was late by an hour, citing phone troubles as the reason. He appeared agitated, constantly checking his phone, and unusually quiet. Authorities delved into his phone records, revealing a 17-hour window where his SIM card was removed. This extended period of deliberate disconnection raised immediate suspicion. That night after dinner, he stayed over at Megan's, but his sleep was restless and soaked with sweat, compelling her to change the bed linens. The next morning, with Kelly officially missing, Chris embarked on a 160-mile trip, claiming he was purchasing cheese as a gift for her family. A bizarre explanation for such a crucial time, though he did return later that evening. Still acting off-kilter, their interactions remained strained. The following day found them at brunch, but a palpable tension hung in the air. Chris had been grappling with health issues, casting a shadow over their intimacy, which had dwindled to almost nothing. Megan harbored a desire to relocate to Denver, a dream Chris had consistently dismissed. Yet during this very encounter, he executed an unexpected about-face, acquiescing to the move. His sudden shift in opinion only deepened the mystery surrounding his recent behavior, leaving Megan even more puzzled and uneasy. Detectives presented her with photographs of his apartment. Immediately, she spotted the missing items from the bathroom: the shower curtain, the towels, and the bath mat, all gone. Furthermore, a large golf travel bag, always leaning against the wall and obstructing the bathroom entrance, had vanished. The case took a new turn when a trained police dog was brought into Chris's apartment. The dog made positive identifications near his bed, the bathroom, the garbage chute, his parking space, and the trunk of his car. The dreadful truth had surfaced. Kelly likely never walked out of her apartment alive. Investigators suspected her body was concealed within a golf bag and transported by vehicle. However, the precise location of her remains remained unknown. 6 long weeks had passed since her disappearance, yet the vital answers remained elusive. Kelly's father confronted his deepest fear. In his heart, he struggled to believe she could still be alive. Each passing day chipped away at his hope. The family grew increasingly frustrated with the investigation, feeling it lacked the urgency it deserved. Despite suspicions, Chris Sako was never arrested in connection with Kelly's disappearance. He faced accusations of maintaining a location for the distribution of illicit substances and the storage of unlawful items. Prosecutors sought $250,000 bail, deeming him a likely suspect in the alleged crime. Detectives turned their attention to the garbage chute at Chris's residence, suspecting it might be where Kelly, or her belongings, were disposed of. This led to an extensive search at the landfill, spanning several days. Meanwhile, the judge tripled Chris's bail, fearing he might attempt to flee, but he ultimately posted the money and was released on bond. While incarcerated, he purportedly confessed to a fellow inmate that Kelly's death occurred during a rough sexual encounter. Furthermore, this same inmate claimed he attempted to orchestrate an assault on a former girlfriend, though the court deemed this testimony inadmissible. Chris pleaded guilty to possession of controlled substances, yet maintained his innocence regarding the charges of distributing illicit materials. He was portrayed in court as someone with a history of substance abuse and aggressive behavior during intimate encounters. Despite this, he appeared composed throughout the hearings. The defense requested more time to examine the hard drive, a request the judge granted by allowing a few extra days. By April of 2014, months after Kelly vanished, the case was classified as cold. This development hit her family and friends hard. They knew missing persons cases were challenging, but the inactive status heightened their distress. The lingering question remained, would the truth about Kelly ever come to light? Later, Chris faced trial, and Kelly's mother felt compelled to attend, even though the proceedings weren't officially related to her daughter's disappearance. The family clung to hope that answers would surface soon. Convinced of Chris's involvement, they desperately sought the truth. Several months passed, culminating in Chris being found guilty on 16 and 17 charges. These charges were related to mishandling illicit materials, yet Kelly's vanishing remained unaddressed during the trial. Following the sentencing, District Attorney Sarah Hill made it known that his involvement in her disappearance played a role in the severity of the punishment. Ultimately, Chris received a 19-year prison sentence. His mother, Joy, however, adamantly maintained his innocence. She asserted that the hard drives discovered held nothing incriminating, explaining that their presence was due to her son's profession in the IT sector, where he routinely collected and repaired technology. She insisted that he had acquired the drives from a previous job and was unaware of their contents. A year had passed since Kelly vanished. With the police offering no solace, her family turned to a private investigator, hoping he could unearth answers where law enforcement had failed. He began his search, meticulously combing through 3 sprawling districts of Milwaukee. As he dug deeper, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Former girlfriends of a man named Chris came forward, sharing unsettling accounts of his behavior. Each recounted how their relationships, initially promising, swiftly spiraled into aggression and control. He had a disturbing pattern. Multiple women have come forward with harrowing accounts of his behavior, revealing a history of violence hidden beneath the surface. Several months before he met Kelly, a chilling incident occurred where one former partner confessed she nearly lost her life at his hands. Another ex-girlfriend recounted how he would often restrain her, cruelly pinching her nose shut, cutting off her air supply. Despite his aggression, one of Chris's former girlfriends admitted she stayed in the relationship. He manipulated her with psychological tactics, praising her patience and convincing her of her indispensable value to him. His actions, however, went beyond mere consent, escalating to a point where she genuinely feared for her life. She recounted an incident of aggressive harassment that left her deeply traumatized, yet she preferred to remain anonymous. The investigation revealed that Kelly had confided in friends about the intimate details of her personal life, but it was the content discovered on Chris's phone that hinted at something far exceeding the boundaries of typical preferences. Another former partner, known as Miss C, shared that she had initially connected with Chris online. She sought a casual connection, spiced with a dash of dominance, but Chris swiftly began to overstep their agreed-upon boundaries. The safe words and signals they had carefully established were consistently disregarded. One instance involved him forcibly restraining her while her sons were in the next room. That was the final time she ever saw him. Police and prosecutors surmised that this could have been how Kelly met her end. On October the 12th, during what he claimed was a simple grocery run, he supposedly disposed of her body, leaving investigators with a vast area to scrutinize. Delving into his financial records, detectives noticed a peculiar purchase: a pair of shoes he bought on the return journey. A theory emerged that Kelly might be nearby, but before a full-scale search could commence, a local resident stumbled upon a human skull in the roadside undergrowth. Soon after, investigators unearthed fully skeletal remains. The only missing pieces were a few finger bones. Her right leg was turned inward, and her left arm was pressed against her ribs. Father Kelly refrained from jumping to conclusions. A year and a half had passed, and the ache of her disappearance remained too raw for assumptions without proof. He awaited the forensic results, clinging to the hope of finding answers. On the 1st of May, 2015, dental records confirmed the remains belonged to Kelly. Though they weren't the first to find her, the police's hunches about where she might be were disturbingly accurate. She was found a mere 16 kilometers from the store where Chris had bought his new shoes. The exact cause of death, however, remained a frustrating mystery, obscured by the passage of time. 19 months after she vanished, the investigation was unexpectedly revived. Soil analysis confirmed a grim truth. Her body hadn't been moved during all that time. Investigators from multiple counties convened, strategizing their next moves. They knew a long road lay ahead, the pivotal clues still elusive. Meanwhile, Kelly's loved ones rallied, determined to keep her memory alive and hopeful for justice. Over the next 2 years, law enforcement painstakingly pieced together the puzzle, scrutinizing testimonies from Chris's former girlfriends, analyzing phone records, and tracing his potential movements. Slowly, they reconstructed the sequence of events leading up to Kelly's disappearance. In the dead of night, between the hours of 3 and 7 on October 11th, Chris had the opportunity to commit the unspeakable. Afterward, he concealed the body, wrapping it tightly in a shower curtain. He then placed it inside a travel golf bag, hauling it down to the underground garage. Security cameras captured him leaving the building at 10:06 a.m. Just 2 minutes later, Kelly's phone pinged its last known location, a cell tower in the vicinity of Chris's residence. This cast a dark shadow on his claims. He insisted she departed at 9 a.m., but her device's activity contradicts his timeline. At 10:22 a.m., Chris reappeared at his apartment, leaving lingering questions in the air. Investigators surmised that it was at this point he was disposing of her phone. Later, around 6:15 p.m., he left the building once more, transporting sports equipment to his mother's house. At almost 8 p.m., he extracted the SIM card from his phone, remaining out of contact for the next 17 hours. An hour later, Chris met Megan and their mutual friends for dinner, after which he stayed at her place overnight. His car remained parked outside, the body of Kelly inside. At 7:30 in the morning on the 12th of October, Chris embarked on a 160-mile journey, claiming he was off to purchase cheese for Megan's parents. During his return, he disposed of a body, using a black glove to submerge it in a weedy, overgrown area. A golf bag, a shower curtain, a bathroom mat, towels, and Kelly's clothing were never recovered. By noon, with Kelly's body no longer in the car, Chris reinserted the SIM card into his phone and drove an additional 13 miles to a store where he bought a new pair of shoes. Soon after, he began receiving messages from Kelly's friends, including her boss, Karen. He then even sent a couple of messages to Kelly's phone, feigning concern about her disappearance. He returned to Megan, staying with her for the night, and the following day he proposed they relocate together. On the 8th of May, 2017, nearly 2 years after Kelly's body was found, the prosecution charged Chris with murder, strangulation, and concealing a body. The investigation uncovered a disturbing pattern. 5 of his former partners recounted instances of his aggressive behavior. Investigators meticulously gathered a wealth of evidence, solidifying the case against him. The prosecution asserted that despite the complexities of the case, the evidence overwhelmingly pointed to his guilt. The legal proceedings were a labyrinth, made all the more intricate by the circumstantial nature of much of the evidence. Yet through diligent investigation, the detectives managed to eliminate every other conceivable suspect. Despite Chris's vehement denials of all charges leveled against him, the court set a date for the hearings to commence. One of the lead detectives conceded that it had been a challenging case, a veritable puzzle of clues, but maintained that the weight of the evidence was substantial. Throughout the ordeal, Chris's parents, Joyce and her husband, remained steadfast in their defense of their son, clinging to the hope of his eventual vindication. They argued that if Chris were truly guilty, he would have meticulously erased every trace of evidence long before the trial even began. However, while incarcerated, he was found in possession of disturbing materials in his cell, a discovery that only served to darken the shadow of suspicion hanging over him. At trial, Kelly's colleagues took the stand, including her supervisor, Karen, who had initially raised the alarm upon her disappearance. Detectives presented surveillance footage depicting Chris opening his trunk and placing a large black bag inside. The defense countered, attempting to discredit the footage, arguing that it offered no conclusive proof that Kelly was actually in the car. Chris's defense team suggested the 17-hour lapse in his phone signals might have been a mere coincidence. The prosecution countered, pointing to his credit card transactions as proof of his movements. Surveillance cameras meticulously recorded every exit from the building, yet Kelly was nowhere to be seen, suggesting she never left the apartment on her own accord. Investigators theorized that her body was transported out inside a missing golf bag. Megan and other witnesses corroborated the existence of the bag, supporting the idea that Kelly could have been concealed within it. After 9 long days of testimony, both sides rested their cases. The jury deliberated for a mere 2 hours before reaching a verdict. Chris Sako was found guilty of strangulation. He was convicted on all counts, held responsible by the jury for the death of Kelly, nearly 5 years after she vanished. The defense argued that the relationship was consensual, emphasizing Kelly's voluntary return to his apartment that day. Prosecutors proposed a sentence of 22 years, a proposition the judge dismissed. The court deemed Chris's actions, from the moment of the crime to its concealment, undeniably incriminating. The judge asserted that imposing a 22-year sentence would endanger society, signaling an intent to deliver a more severe punishment than the prosecution had requested. Kelly's family, including her mother, father, and sister, implored the court for the maximum possible sentence. Her mother described the 18 months of uncertainty surrounding her daughter's fate as agonizing. The judge remarked that even if the relationship began consensually, the situation spiraled out of control, and Chris demonstrated a complete disregard for human life. He strangled Kelly, driven by his own desires. Afterward, he attempted to conceal his actions, attempting to continue life as if nothing had occurred. Testimonies from former partners, along with illicit material discovered in his residences, only reinforced the perception of him as a danger to society. Following a protracted investigation and legal battle, Chris Sako received a 31-year prison sentence in 2018. Adding to his woes, he was handed an additional 19 years of supervised release upon his eventual liberation. Considering his pre-existing sentence for possession of illicit substances and contraband, it's highly probable he will spend the remainder of his days behind bars. He attempted to appeal the guilty verdict, alleging procedural errors, but in 2019, his appeal concerning the contraband and illicit substances case was denied. In 2023, the court also declined to revisit the case surrounding the death of Kelly. Kelly's loved ones lived in fear for years that her case would remain unsolved, a constant weight on their hearts. Even after Chris was convicted, a sense of closure felt elusive. However, they found solace in finally being able to hold a proper farewell and lay her to rest with dignity. Her mother, Maureen, struggled immensely with the loss, withdrawing from the world. She started avoiding social gatherings, often calling in sick, as being around people became unbearable. Her friends, unsure of how to comfort her, drifted away. Maureen expressed that true recovery felt impossible, that all that remained was a new agonizing reality.